What's going on, Badger Nation? Welcome to the PPC Den podcast, the world's first and longest running show all about Amazon advertising, tips, tricks, and strategies to make your Amazon PPC life a little bit easier and a little bit more profitable. Thanks so much for subscribing, whether it be on Spotify or YouTube. Today, I get to talk to my dear friend, Laura Meyer, a full-service Amazon agency owner of Envision Horizons. Their website and their LinkedIn is in the description here. And we have a really interesting casual conversation talking about how the other side of Amazon growth, the side that is not technical performance max marketing, can influence the yin and the yang of Amazon growth. So let's jump into it. See you inside the Badger Den.
I've launched campaigns and picked keywords. I've got my bids, set placements too. And bad mistakes, I've made a few. I've had my share of wrong keywords, but I've got through. We are the PPC Den, my friends, and we'll keep up the rising to the end. You two are the PPC Den. We talk about Amazon. No time for manicures, 'cause we fix the gambit of the world.
I'm really fascinated by Envision Horizons, in the sense of a lot of people I talk to and a lot of people I know, they have Amazon marketing agencies, but it's really one piece of an overall puzzle, in the sense of it's just PPC management, or it's just product listing optimization. And so Envision Horizons is a company that really, I look at it from the outside, and I am really impressed by being able to essentially connect the dots on a full service experience for your customers. Like, you look at a case study, and the case studies are beautiful. So it's like, okay, this is like a creative agency. And then you start reading about it, and then it's like, oh, we helped fix an IPI score. And like, now their inventory management is a lot better. And I think that's really impressive to pull off, both the technical side and the creative side.
Thank you.
Are you aware of the challenges with balancing both the creative and the technical side?
Very much so.
Yeah.
I have headaches every day.
About what?
Well, look, so it's interesting being an Amazon agency, right? Because people are like, oh, you're this niche service provider. Like, you must be pretty one-dimensional. But the reality of it is Amazon's become so complex that I've really tried to take the model that these larger agencies use to manage, full D2C and omni-channel strategies. And I've pulled some of how they organize their companies and brought that into how I organize my company. But I do it in a slightly different way, because another thing that I really make sure doesn't happen is that we're super siloed. So like, I studied, L'Oreal, right? Massive company. And L'Oreal has this phrase that they use, which is called centers of excellence. So they have their centers of excellence for packaging and manufacturing and like performance marketing and all of these things. And I really pulled on that concept of how can I build a center of excellence within my company for Amazon creative and a center of excellence for Amazon for inventory management and optimization. And then a center of excellence for, of course, not only just paid search, but let's talk about DSP and AMC. And now we're at this really exciting and honestly pivotal moment where now there's Prime Video. There was the big announcement that happened earlier this week where Amazon's really trying to position themselves as this upper funnel marketing partner. And to me, it just feels like this full service moment of, wow, like I could really build this into an agency where we are doing these large brand campaigns and we're not just doing, you know, the PPC growth hack tactics that were very much a part of our core and how we originated. And you really can't scale up to that without the support of creatives and having account managers and account directors that see what's working across these centers of excellence to build a cohesive strategy.
So I take it, you know, let's say performance marketers or like technical digital marketers, right? The people down there with spreadsheets optimizing PPC campaigns. How does information go into that center and come out of that center in the sense of, because I have to imagine that it's like hard not to silo, isn't it? Because like those skills are very specific of like, I need to structure my match types a certain way. I need to look at this technical search query performance report and make decisions about what keywords to go after and how aggressively they should be and like what a target ACOS should be there for those particular keywords, for those particular products. Like it's an entire universe of information that could be very foreign to a creative person who's focused on design and like vice versa. Like how do they communicate? Like how does information sort of get out of the performance marketer and come into the performance marketer's universe when it's possible that they're interacting with people who are not performance marketers?
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I mean, look, siloed departments isn't just an agency issue. It's an issue in all organizations. But an advantage of an agency is that we can be a bit more nimble, right? Like we have multiple paid media managers. We have multiple account managers. We have multiple inventory analysts and creative strategists. So they can work together to really formulate best practices. But then what I've set up is a pod structure where these a pod will have a certain number of paid media managers and they only look at the accounts in that pod. Same thing, like a pod is assigned an inventory analyst, a creative strategist, a graphic designer, a video editor, a certain number of account managers, and then the account director is like the mini CEO of that pod. And the beauty of this is you're still getting the collective of the larger agency and the best practice of the larger agency. But now this pod can work very cohesively and they have their syncs of like, hey, here's the big initiative for this specific client. And it's not getting diluted by being one of a lot of clients. Now it's one of a smaller cohort. So now there's efficiencies and a larger emphasis on those needs.
Now let me ask you this one. So the pod structure solves that sort of cohesion of how to approach it with a client. But what about the individual paid media person or the individual performance marketer communicating with other performance marketers? Like how does information go between them? Because I also can feel like that is another pitfall. Because I've thought so much about expanding services for an agency because there's so many people who start off by being a paid media manager and then, it begins to want to branch out to other things. It's, so I think a lot about this. So how do the performance marketers communicate with themselves and how does that how does that process get managed? Sort of the professional development for these marketers and internal collaboration.
Well, so I don't know if you are familiar with the whole EOS concept. I know you're supposed to follow it exactly how they outline it.
Who says that?
the integrators of EOS, and maybe some of the
sure.
books. But
Yes.
In that whole concept, there's the accountability chart and an org chart.
Mhm.
And I've pulled from this because there's still the department of paid media. And so they still meet and they share best practices and they hold each other accountable in new trainings that Amazon is rolling out and certifications and webinars. And, there's a paid media only Slack channel internally. So there's still that subculture of those that specialize as, say, a paid media manager or a creative strategist or account manager. But then in terms of what they're accountable for, that goes back to the pod structure, because they're really held accountable to making sure the clients are successful for the pod that they're in. And then twice a month, my entire client services team does something called War Room, which sounds intense, but everyone comes to War Room with something that they are proud of, that they succeeded in, and something that they are stuck on, and that is a problem. And everyone shares those things, and they go into what's called like the parking lot, right, of issues. And then the team votes on what issues do we want to dig into deeper. So now the whole team is learning from the larger collective so that it's not super siloed. And yes, to have that whole team on a meeting twice a month, is that a quote expensive to the firm? Absolutely. But you can't beat education. And going back to the advantage of why a business wants to hire an agency versus building a team internally is that they don't have to learn everything the hard way. They can learn from their peers. And an agency should know what is best practice or has tested new tools or new tactics. And those learnings can then be applied to the rest of their book of business.
I think a lot about, individual, maybe solopreneurs, maybe Amazon brands that have like a team of 5, that component. And a lot of times the conversation is, do I learn paid media management myself? Do I use a tool? Do I use bulk files? Do I get a freelancer? Do I hire an agency to do that one specific thing? And I guess let's go further along the chapters there. And let's say they've already figured out their paid media component. Would you recommend whoever's doing it for them, whether it's them or a team or an agency doing that one component of performance marketing, would you generally say that it's a completely separate person to do the creative side? If they were about to up level and expand and bring on more services, more operations into their marketing and operations, would you say 10 out of 10 times the person doing the technical marketing should not be doing creative marketing?
I would say 9 out of 10 times. There are those very special individuals who their brain works in multiple ways. But as a team lead or as an employer or even as someone who's hiring an agency, you have to have really clear expectations of what those individuals are in charge of, because you want to set great team members up for success. And if they're really good at paid media, and now you're also holding them responsible for something that doesn't align with the job that they were originally hired for or what leans into their skill set, you could be setting them up for failure. And that's not something you want to do as a leader, especially if they're really good at what they were originally supposed to be in charge of. So, and the other piece of it too is size of business, what the business can afford. Mm-hmm. It's a very different animal if you're a $500,000 a year Amazon business. In that case, yeah, you can probably piecemeal the creative, versus if you're doing $500,000 a month, you should probably be on that path of elevating the sophistication and how you're approaching split testing of creative, the amount of creative you're testing, and really trying to be more of the best in class versus checking the box of what you need to do.
It's funny. I was just about to say in my previous question, it was it's smaller companies, solopreneur type situations. But then I was thinking, wait a second, there's like Fortune 1000, like there's like Fortune 500 companies that I know that thought all of Amazon marketing was hiring a paid media manager.
Yeah.
Like that was the only piece of Amazon marketing that they had heard of, that they needed to do, that they just hire essentially a PPC person. And then inevitably issues arise of like, who's in charge of like inventory management, or like chasing down Amazon support, or like, hey, did you know your IPI score is like 1? Like,
Yeah.
like all these crazy things begin to bubble up, and these companies could be at massive, massive scale, which sort of brings up the question, does that mean like the technical component on Amazon is more important? And like, if you were to like divvy up, if you had 10 beans and you could put beans in different buckets, that like potentially like the paid traffic component, like the performance marketing, the technical stuff, the spreadsheet work would be getting more beans than other things. Is that the takeaway from that
There's
experience?
no question that paid media is one of the most important growth levers on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So again, even at these large corporations, they could still have very limited budget in what the CFO is allocated to the Amazon channel.
All the time.
Because the thing is, while you and I may think, like, let's say they're doing $50 million a year on Amazon and hardly even trying, you and I are like, wow, that's awesome. Whereas if the business itself actually does $12 billion a year, like, what's 50 million? Like, it's a rounding error on their P&L. not exactly, but you get the gist. So it's going to get it'll get minimal budget. And also, like, larger corporations expect a higher employee attribution than smaller businesses, meaning revenue divided by the number of employees. And PE looks at that a lot as well. That's a really important metric to a lot of VCs and PE firms. So again, I think paid media management, super, super important hire, and you want to get someone who knows what they're doing. But what I'm also seeing in a lot of cases is these larger corporations are like, oh, well, our paid media manager can also just go and run our DSP. And like, oh, they can storyboard what's going to happen for our Prime Video ad. Like, we'll just get the video that worked 2 years ago from our creative team, and then we'll run that. And where I actually see a huge miss in our industry right now is testing of creative on DSP and video ads. Meta, like creative testing on Meta, can be a massive unlock, right? And I can't tell you how many times with even large clients of ours, they're like, oh, well, we only have this one video.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, our team, we can cut it different ways. Like we can play with it, so we can at least do some split testing. But how do we make sure, one, there's not ad fatigue too? Like if that's a video you've been running on social for 18 months, and now, yes, we're reaching the Amazon audience, which could be different and incremental, but I'm pretty sure most Americans are on social and also on Amazon.
Yeah.
So you want to keep things fresh too.
Yeah. In fact, all Meta is creative testing.
Yeah.
In fact, it's only going to become more and more important as like you can more rapidly, as brands figure out how to more rapidly iterate on creative and watch those incremental gains go up, for sure. So I guess if I'm a paid traffic person, or if there's an agency that only does paid traffic, or if there's a brand who's working with a person or agency that's only paid traffic, what would be sort of your picture that brand and then picture them twice as large? What do you think they changed? Like if that's all they were doing, like what does their evolution look like if they were to zoom forward 12 months and be twice as big? Like what are they not paying attention to? What are they not adding? What would you recommend them to do?
I see. So you're saying structurally what would have to change, not what tactics did they take to get there?
No, like exactly, like structurally, like they've only been considering paid traffic as the primary growth lever. In fact, perhaps the only growth lever. And maybe they weren't paying attention to other components like creative testing or even beautifying and optimizing their A+ content and things like that. Like they weren't doing those things. They were putting all their beans into the paid traffic bucket.
And when you say paid traffic, are we talking just paid search, or would that also say incorporate STD and DSP?
Let's say sponsor product, sponsor brand, sponsor display. Let's
Okay,
just say
the fundamentals, the 101.
yeah. Mhm.
Well, I'm very, very bullish on DSP, and I have been for really like the last 2 years. And when we think of DSP, we usually have two different initiatives, especially for our business, say if it doubled overnight. Number one, with DSP, you need to have your retention metrics at initiative about how do we keep, because I think it's no secret, we do a lot of beauty. So a big thing with beauty is retaining your customers and getting them to continue to replenish. So having very high ROAS goals for that type of acquisition or maintenance. But then there's also cross-catalog selling. So you could be leaving a lot of money on the table because you have this top seller and that's what you're known for and that's what customers keep coming back for. But you also launched this amazing product a year ago. You should be taking those who are already brand loyal and purchasing your product and using those audiences in DSP and then remarketing them to other products that could be really popular for you. And then there's obviously the prospecting element of DSP. And I think it's fair to say if you're a brand and you're doing $1 million a month on Amazon, there is no reason you should not be leveraging AMC right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd maybe even lower that threshold too, but like definitely if you're doing $1 million, like you should be using AMC. And the reason for that is, one, we've been doing some testing with even convincing our clients to incorporate their own first-party data from their own website. Businesses are always afraid of, oh, well, if I go really big on Amazon, am I cannibalizing my own D2C? And in this current state, it's really about being where the customer is and just being happy that they convert on your product where you can meet them. And so building some of those lookalike audiences and, of course, just remarketing those that abandoned cart or who viewed your product detail page 4 times but didn't purchase, or you can even set the threshold to 2 times. I think that's a huge opportunity, especially if they're just using the very classic sponsor product, sponsor brand,
Right.
sponsor video. And then I'm also super bullish on what you can do with affiliate marketing in Amazon. So, TikTok Shop was a big conversation, and now some of the voices on that have gone a little silent with what's going on legally in this country. And, I'll even admit we rolled out TikTok Shop services, and now we're kind of rethinking how to reposition it to be more of a short form video
Mm-hmm.
solution and running paid media on that. But TikTok Shop is built off of affiliates. It's those
Mhm.
TikTok influencers who are getting a percent of that. And Amazon has rolled out creator connections, which is good. It can be hit or miss. And there isn't massive scale on it when you compare it to what you can get in terms of TikTok affiliates, in terms of like the sheer number of affiliates that are willing to participate. So I think that's a really big opportunity for Amazon. And we've been collaborating with PR agencies that have been doing affiliate marketing for decades in some cases, and seeing, okay, like we know what our Prime Day strategy is. We're about, let's say, 2 months
Mm-hmm.
out, maybe a little less. If you know what your deals are going to be, you should be hitting up these affiliates and saying, hey, feature my deal in your Prime Day listicle and I'll give you 20%.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really exciting thing because it just fuels the Amazon flywheel completely.
Mm-hmm.
And the affiliates are happy. So I think that's a big thing. Completely agree. Creative testing is a big part, but that also ties into the DSP initiative. We're big fans of PickFu too. Shout out to them, I guess. But we like to use PickFu more for the on product detail page creative. Even though Amazon has their tool, can take so long. And then it's like, this image performed 51% better and you don't know why. At least with PickFu, there's comments and feedback. And we just find it to be a faster way to move forward, where with creative, it's very tangible, objective in what creative is performing better. And yeah, I mean, I just think that we are in a new era of building brand awareness. Has always been viewed as this expensive, daunting task that only the big brands can afford. But I have the opinion that smaller brands can't afford not to do brand awareness. And there are ways that you can creatively do it. And it may have to involve the founder of the smaller business personally networking with publications and influencers and putting themselves out there and being vulnerable to just get some of those earned media opportunities. And then that can help build the flywheel so that your performance will actually perform much better. You know, I've seen it time and time again that the average ROAS for our clients that had brand equity versus our clients that no one's ever heard of really, it's night and day the difference. So there is that trickle down effect of thinking about how can I continue to, or how can I establish a brand while still keeping margins in mind.
Yeah. I've seen it firsthand many, many times where a brand does have everything in place. They have really good content marketing. They have really good social presence. They have really good design. They have really good, they have like really good everything. And they've really fleshed out content for every stage of the funnel. They've thought about things like their brand story. They'll run like brand story campaigns as well. They're like networking. They're getting featured in places. And it makes technical marketing of like running PPC campaigns incredibly easy in the sense of like it's like you have a cheat code on.
Yeah.
It's like you can't miss. Like every time you throw the ball towards the basket, it just like happens to go in. So it's like all that stuff really compounds. And I guess like one thing that people would always come back to is like, oh, you know, like where's the ROI? Because it can sometimes be hard to find. Like it can be sometimes difficult to pin down like, hey, because it's not as simple as, oh, as soon as we started doing, we just turned on an influencer campaign and now our total A cost is so much better. It's sometimes not so black and white. And sometimes it really is a compound effect that can be hard to piece together and hard to draw back. I guess for your own sort of pods, like when these pods are working together, how do they know like where the weak point is or where the thing to fix is when you have so many different things sort of, you know, you're making a stew and it's like, you know, how do you determine what you need more of and less of, or where you know to double down on and those kinds of things when you're sort of essentially like putting these ingredients together? How do you know which one is out of balance?
Yeah. If you need to add more salt or if you need to add more citrus.
Yeah.
Well, I think ultimately that comes down to the importance of having a really good account manager or brand manager, who our account managers really operate as the strategic lead and project manager, where they have a pulse on what all of these other supporting team members are doing and seeing the effects of it. And, you know, we have our own analytics suite where we're looking at things like new to brand customer ratio versus returning customer ratio. We can even see things of like, this product generates the most new to brand customers, and these customers are inclined to also purchase these products. So like the account manager can go in and start to see this and think about, well, can we better merchandise this? Oh, and can we also, you know, let me ping my media manager that we should be making sure to remarket those that are buying this product to also try this product.
Right. So a lot of metrics-based information can then feed into where any weak point is or area to double down on.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, hopefully you've inspired brands out there to take the leap into expanding their sort of marketing operations beyond intense focus on sponsor product, sponsor brand, sponsor display. because I do think all those other things eventually feed into a higher performing sponsor product, sponsor brand, sponsor display, and a more enduring and stronger brand. Amazing. I think one thing that's so great about talking to full service agency people and sort of piecing together that puzzle to help people realize, like, oh, there's a lot more than just, the next PPC growth hack.
Yeah.
For sure. There's an entire universe out there.
Well, and I think Amazon is reaching a point of maturity as a marketplace where those little growth hacks are short-lived. Maybe they can help drive a bump, but at the end of the day, it's either going to get out that this is the hack, and then Amazon updates the algorithm whether they say they do or not, and it's not going to work anymore. And I just strongly believe that we're entering more of a brand era rather than this convenience of whatever's the cheapest product on Amazon. Like, there are certain categories where it's always going to be very commoditized and very price centric. But I think, again, that's probably why we do a lot in beauty and we do a lot in fashion, is there is a big brand aspect to those categories. And how can you continue to build the story of trust and performance and cool? Like that's a big part of it too, is do people want to identify with this brand? Does it speak to them?
Yeah. I also think the evolution not only is brand focused, but also like profit focused, meaning there's elements beyond just sponsor product, sponsor brand, sponsor display that influence profit, and you can take advantage of those things. And sometimes they are, creative, and the creative has an ROI to it. It will impact your technical metrics like click-through rate and conversion rate, which are levers that you can't pull on if you're not thinking outside of that.
Yeah.
So yes, I appreciate anytime we can have a full service, full funnel view of marketing on Amazon, because I think it hopefully inspires people to sort of reach a little bit further and try different things beyond, just because a lot of times if someone is looking to grow, they might only be looking at like a PPC growth hack, when in actuality, maybe one of the easiest things that they could do is actually incorporate some top of funnel type activity.
Yeah.
Or some creative type activity.
And, look, so it's funny. I was at a networking event a few months ago, and I was speaking with this woman who is very seasoned in her career. She had worked at creative agencies. Like, basically, she started her career in creative like back in the 70s. And it was fascinating to talk to her because she's like, look, she's kind of giving you this talk of like, oh, you're one of those performance marketers, huh? She goes, it doesn't matter. Brands always matter. And she goes, I've seen it a million times in my career where brand is important, and then some new type of marketing comes out, and all of the CFOs and people who are very P&L driven flock to it because it's quantitative and you can track it. And then what happens is it becomes saturated and it becomes expensive. And then brands need to reshift their focuses again on their point of differentiation. And she goes, I saw it with telemarketing. And then she goes, and then I saw it with general digital marketing. And then I saw it with Meta. And now there's this trickle down effect. And I think we're seeing that with Amazon too, is like 7 years ago, you could have the best paid search strategy out there and you could win on Amazon. Today, you could have the best paid search strategy on Amazon, but be missing the creative, the unique differentiation or innovation on the product, the social awareness of it or social media awareness of it. And you could be losing to the brand that maybe they're not even spending $1 on Amazon paid search, but they are blowing it out of the water on TikTok. Like, I've seen that in some categories where I know for a fact there are brands out there that are doing well over $1 million a month on Amazon, having spent like zero on Amazon advertising because they're doing so well in these other areas.
My response would be like, well, what if they added a little bit of paid advertising? But
I mean,
yes.
that's where I'm like, well,
Yeah.
imagine what you could do.
Yeah.
That's where I get excited.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the engine is
Yeah.
already moving. Let's just pour some gas on it.
Yeah, inertia is a real thing
Okay.
in digital marketing for sure. Well, Laura, thank you so much for coming back on the show. We have links to your LinkedIn and your agency in the description. So thank you so much for broadening our horizons here on the PPC Den podcast.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.